posjećenje i izdanje poznatog festivala Ars Electronica u Linzu ove godine imalo je preko 90.000 posjetitelja.
Gotovo 1000 sudionika, umjetnika, znanstvenika, teoretičara i aktivista predstavilo je svoje vizije budućnosti grada i života u urbanom okruženju u sklopu 500-tinjak festivalskih radionica.
Post City kao grad budućnosti ne reflektira postapokaliptične vizije i crne prognoze, no poboljšanje kvalitete života stanovnika grada nemoguće je bez osvrta na klimatske promjene, nove forme organizacije društva te budućnost arhitekture, prometa i prijenosa znanja.
Stoga je glavni tematski okvir ovogodišnjeg festivala vrijeme, u kojemu je informacija slobodna, tehnologija inteligentna, a u tvornicama radi više robota nego ljudi.
Transferiramo vam upravo takvu sliku post grada i to kroz oči umjetnosti u sprezi sa znanosti, tehnologijom i ekologijom.
Festival Ars Electronica u austrijskom Linzu jedan je od globalno najpoznatijih i najvećih novomedijskih festivala u svijetu. Razvijen iz male lokalne inicijative koja je kasnih 70-ih nastojala ukazati na sve veće značenje i potencijale suradnje između umjetnosti, znanosti i tehnologije, festival danas svojim elaboriranim programom okuplja i povezuje kreativce iz cijelog svijeta. Ars Electronica brandira Linz kao mjesto zaigranih high-tech inovacija, hrani ekonomiju i turizam grada i regije, privlači investitore i velike igrače iz privatnog sektora, a na ulice izvlači doslovno cijeli grad. Nepregledne rijeke ljudi koji upijaju komadiće ovog tehnospektakla. No ono što festival čini doista značajnim je da Ars Electronica kontinuirano pomiče granice promišljanja suvremene stvarnosti i to iz perspektive umjetnosti koja je kritička, beskompromisna i vizionarska.
Ars Electronica is a festival for art, technology and society. And this very interesting triangle has been made, so to say, the core of Ars Electronica already since the very beginning, since 1979. So it's really a very traditional festival since 36 years. Every year we invite artists, but also scientists, engineers, people from the governments, people from the industry to discuss all together important topics for the future. The leading role in Ars Electronica has the arts, the ideas and the creativity of the artists.
Tema ovogodišnjeg festivala objedinila je 500-tinjak događanja koje je posjetilo preko 90.000 ljudi uz gotovo 1000 festivalskih sudionika. Kroz izložbe, konferencije, performanse i čitav niz drugih prezentacijskih formi i pod krovnim nazivom Post City, tematski koncept ove godine usredotočen na ideju budućnosti grada i života u urbanom okruženju, ali ne kroz pesimističke, crne prognoze i postapokaliptičnu budućnost, nego proaktivno promišljanje vremena koje nam donosi inteligentnu tehnologiju, slobodnu informaciju i novu geografiju svijeta.
Ars Electronica is always oscillating a little bit between topics that are very precisely trying to plot the future and look really, so to say, the day after tomorrow, and then again making topics that are more reflecting how the future is already part of our daily life, and especially when it comes to information technology, when it comes to the living together in the cities. Many of the former science fiction scenarios are just about to become reality, and so we thought it's time again to make a festival where we, so to say, stop a little bit, not always, just trailblazing into the future, but stop a little bit, look around and also create an environment where everybody can, so to say, participate. Because when we are going into the future, we have to make sure that we are taking along everybody. It's not just an issue for the experts, and so we thought the city of tomorrow is a very appropriate topic on the one side for the experts, but also to invite and engage the broader audiences. For Ars Electronica, it's important to have an impact on the local society as well. And the best way to do this is to leave your own fortresses and castles of the art, to go outside of the museums and the concert halls. And we have a very successful history in doing this. when we decided the topic post-city, the city after tomorrow, what will be the city of the future, we were looking for interesting places, and we found this former logistics center of the Austrian Postal Service. So this were a place where 10,000 of parcels were distributed, sorted out every day, but it went out of function because it was not big enough anymore, it was not efficient enough anymore. So for us it became a very good, so to say, living symbol of things that become obsolete, because the technological revolution is going so fast, and this building was opened only 22, 23 years ago. And now it's like urban trash. It has no function anymore. It will be torn down in the coming years. And we thought this is really a great place to think about and discuss with the people about transformation. Because the important thing is we should not think about the present time as a crisis. Because crisis always means it's like, I have a little flu, I go to bed for a few weeks, and then I'm fine, like before. What's happening now with our society means there is no way of getting back. So we have to focus on how do we want to go forward to progress. And this is just a perfect environment to discuss this.
Post City je prilika za poboljšanje kvalitete života stanovnika grada. Ono koje je nemoguće bez osvrta na klimatske promjene, nove forme organizacije društva, budućnost arhitekture, prometa i prijenosa znanja. Program uokviruje 3 velike podteme koje su vezane uz glavne festivalske lokacije. Prva je sam Post City, golema zgrada pošte kao glavno festivalsko mjesto koje predstavlja različite tematske zone poput budućnosti kretanja i budućnosti hrane. Drugi punkt je centar grada i Oka plac, gdje je predstavljena izložba nagrađenih radova, a treći sam Ars Electronica centar, koji je fokusiran na prožimanje znanosti, umjetnosti i tehnologije, narativ oko kojeg je ideja festivala i izgrađena. Uz arhitekturu, ljudsko tijelo, odnose između vrsta, spajanje čovjeka i stroja te ekologije i okoliša, budućnost kretanja jedan je od koncepata koji okupira imaginaciju umjetnika i kreativaca okupljenih na festivalu, kao i mnogih studenata, poput onih s japanskog sveučilišta Tsukuba, koje na robotičkim projektima surađuje s Ars Electronica Future Labom.
This time I brought a big robot Mark 1, which is a specialized mobile machine to create the sense of walking while the rider expands to the 5-meter tall giant. So the machine expands the human body sensation 3 times larger than the normal human being. The big robot provides a new concept of human-machine interaction. There was no robot such expands the body sensation of human being. So, of course, there are not so many big robots at this moment. So the big robot Mark 1 is the largest movable robot in the world. And it is a kind of mobility. The main theme is mobility. One of the main themes of post-city is mobility. And the big robot expands the walking action. So it provides a new concept of mobility. I prepared a specialized augmented reality system for big robot exhibition, and we put markers on the big robot and captured the 3D position of each joint. And then, based on the data, I superimposed the computer graphic image of the skin of the robot. So the actual robot has only a bone, but in this augmented reality, the computer graphic skin of the robot are displayed, and people can see it's a big robot, like a science fiction. So in the real world, the rider feels the body sensation, and the audience can see as if the big robot is walking.
Post City dotiče i temu poimanja fizičkog invaliditeta u budućnosti, te novog odnosa prema tjelesnosti kojeg omogućuje upravo suvremena tehnologija.
The problem is that there are hardly any toys for people with physical disabilities on the market. They are just really simple toys like animals. When you push a button, then they make just a sound, a noise or something like that, or a movement. And that's really boring for children in the age of 10 to 14. And we thought, okay, we have to change that. And we did some research with non-trivial toys, like multi-rotors, like the drone or helicopters, planes, and also cars. And we developed a special joystick. It's a 4-dimensional joystick. It's just moving the stick up, down, to the left, to the right, pushing forward and backward the whole thing, and also with zip and puff. And so you have the control over all movements of the multicopter, and so you can almost do anything with it.
Moguća primjena ovakvih inovacija nalazi se ne samo kod proizvodnje igračaka, već i kod računalne periferije, gdje joystick može zamijeniti miša, te glazbenih instrumenata i nove industrije. Ono što je percipirano kao tjelesni nedostatak, sada postaje izvor imaginacije i novih mogućnosti. Prilagodljivost i raznolikost mogućnosti primjene pokazuje se kao jedna od najvažnijih smjernica i u robotici, u kontekstu arhitekture i dizajna.
Basically, robots are mostly used for mass fabrication. So you spend much time programming and then the robot will be building cars for the next 10 years or so. In our case, for architecture, we really want to go into mass customization. So we want to be able to have ways that every piece is different, every piece is individual, we can adjust it. So with much of architecture and design, it's really not about making the same piece 1,000 times, but finding ways how we can efficiently create many different and separate pieces. And in this case, we use an industrial process, which is called incremental forming. It's used in the car industry with metal sheets, and the advantage of it is that you can create individual shapes without having to mill a mold underneath it. So you can just directly push this out of the material. And here at the Ars Electronica, we're doing the same process, but we're not using metal sheets, but we're using PET plastic. So the same material you use for plastic bottles. And the exciting thing about that is that you can deform it without needing heat. So the entire process works just with the force of the robot pushing against it.
Ovakve robote u proizvodnji koristi već mnogo dizajnera. Jednostavnost primjene, robustnost, učinkovitost i financijska pristupačnost sve su privlačniji dizajnerima i arhitektima koji traže izazove u radi sam pristupa i brza, efikasna rješenja.
The exciting part about robots is, like this kind of industrial robots, is that they are very cheap machines actually. Compared to machines, it still costs as much as a small car, but you just buy them. You can buy them used because they're produced in very large numbers for the car industry. So you can get an old robot for 5,000 euros, and then you can just mount whatever tool you want on top of it. Here we have a pen, but you can also use a milling spindle or whatsoever. So a carpenter, a designer can buy a cheap robot, put a milling spindle on top of it, and have his own manufacturing workshop for really little money.
Odnos čovjeka i tehnologije prolazi možda najdrastičniju transformaciju u povijesti, upravo u vremenu u kojem živimo. No, što se u ovoj tehnofilskoj suvremenosti događa s prirodom i poimanjem prirodnog, te s odnosima između živih vrsta? Pozicioniranje čovjeka u odnosu na okoliš i vrste s kojima supostoji jedna je od najaktualnijih tema recentne novomedijske i hibridne umjetničke prakse.
Since it's been discovered and proved that dogs have been one of the main selection pressure in dog-human parallel evolution, which has caused a series of mutations on the genes which are regulating the transport of serotonin in humans. I have, and since serotonin is the main product and therefore hormone which is making us being tolerant and which actually made us able to start producing culture, I decided to isolate a certain amount of serotonin out of the platelets of my blood and out of the platelets of my dog's blood, and by different biochemical protocols I have transferred that serotonin into very similar as it is done in the perfume industry. I have transformed it into a certain kind of a perfume.
Ulazak posjetitelja u špilju donosi interaktivnost i iskustveni doživljaj kraja. Iza senzora, u mraku krznene konstrukcije, trigerira se specifičan miris serotonina nastao spajanjem esencije čovjeka i njegovog najvjernijeg životinjskog prijatelja. Kroz rad umjetnika s materijom koja je živa, dotiču se različite razine značenja, od osobnog odnosa pojedinca s kućnim ljubimcem i emotivne memorije koja započinje već u djetinjstvu do makro razine evolucije vrsta u budućnosti. Rad s novim materijalima, među kojima su i biološki organizmi, na neki način uvjetuje i zahtjeva interdisciplinarnost umjetničkog rada. Prekoračenje granice discipline, bilo umjetničke, bilo znanstvene, proizlazi logično iz takvog istraživačkog poriva.
If I am interested in the concept of life, to me it is absolutely logical that I am working with the living also at different levels. And of course, for this kind of interdisciplinary formal practice, it is absolutely necessary to connect with the tools and knowledge also at the field of the natural sciences.
Pod nazivom Cyber Arts tradicionalno se u sklopu Ars Electronica festivala održava izložba radova nagrađenih u 6 kategorija. Video stvaralaštvo, hibridne umjetnosti, digitalna glazba i umjetnost zvuka, pioniri medijske umjetnosti, mladi autori do 19 godina i umjetnost i tehnologija. Najbitnija smjernica kod odabira radova je izvrsnost definirana specifično unutar svake pojedinačne kategorije. U kategoriji hibridnih umjetnosti ove godine glavnu nagradu, Zlatnu Niku, dobio meksički umjetnik Gilberto Esparza za instalaciju kojom uspostavlja samoregulirajući simbiotički sustav za pročišćavanje vode. Novi organizam sposoban poboljšati životne uvjete zajednice.
I was part of the hybrid art jury and it took place here for about 3 days. It was actually quite intense. We had many applications and our first challenge was to separate and to define the idea of hybrid art in relation to interactive art. In fact, it seems like interactive art has become pretty established. It's more art and technology. It's more what Ars Electronica is known for. So I was very happy actually that it was starting to move into hybrids. And there is a whole history with it. 10 years ago, there was an exhibition here called Hybrid Art, and Derek Kirchhoff did kind of a preface to it. He curated it, and Jens Hauser did a great essay. So it was kind of a seed for biology, getting back to nature, thinking about co-creation, moving away from a single artist being the center of attention to more collaborative works, moving away from galleries truly into laboratories and working with scientists to think about larger issues. And in a way, if you give it some thought, what we really felt was important to show this year in particular is works that took a long time, that took a kind of a dedication that did not end up with just one person doing something quick and having a piece in the show, but that was exploratory, that was in communication with the scientists, that influenced also scientists thinking about a particular issue. And Gilberto's work was particularly interesting to us because he comes from a fine art background, but his interest took him to explore how to actually help his environment in Mexico that's so polluted and it's got so many problems, and the way he does it in a way has a sense of humor, but it still has an aesthetic, and yet it's very seriously engaging scientists to really make a difference in helping with the pollution problems, and most of all to raise consciousness about our relationship to nature.
Hibridnost kategorizira novomedijsku umjetnost od samih njezinih početaka. Ono što je kod takve suvremene umjetnosti zanimljivo je da nisu samo umjetnički radovi hibridni, nego su hibridni i timovi koji ih potpisuju. Jednakopravno koautorstvo umjetnika, inženjera, IT stručnjaka, dizajnera i biologa nova je dimenzija suvremenog umjetničkog djelovanja koja u pozadini ima ozbiljan, punokrvan znanstveni rad, a da pritom ipak ne bježi od kritičke oštrice humora i apsurda.
Počelo je sa Bijenalom u Ljubljani godine 2014. Kurator je bio Nizozemac Jan Belen i on je htio nekako dizajn redefinirati. Za mene je bio, mislim i za ostale, jer sam po profesiji dizajner i arhitekt, stvar ta da je suradnja različitih struka potrebna. Jer dizajn nije samo nešto lijepo, nego sve oko nas.
Our main mission was actually to approach design from a non-human perspective, and we chose plants as sort of the ultimate aliens because we have very little connection to vegetable beings as animals. And we wanted to do a piece that was also a bit critical of design and design approaches. So we chose to focus on sexual reproduction specifically because that is something that we share with plants. It's in the same function. And of course, because sex we always perceive as it being very, very cultural. And we wanted to make sex toys for plants to bring humans and plants into proximity through humor, absurdity. And the way we did this was to appropriate human-centered design and replace the human with the plant. But unlike with the human, where you could do a series of studies, interviews, etc., we had to rely on what science tells us about plant life and its role, the ecology, and the partners of sexual reproduction. So based on this, we conducted a series of so-called interviews, or it was a science faction prototyping process where the plants, based on true facts and data, kind of explained the role of the reproductive strategies. And because many of these plants aren't perhaps getting the most out of sex, we thought of ways that would follow a certain biologic to augment, to enhance their reproductive capacity.
Znanstveni proces koji stoji iza hibridnih radova je kompleksan i intenzivan. On je također i recipročan. Znanstvenici inspiriraju umjetnike i umjetnici znanstvenike, a struke se međusobno prožimaju u pokušaju mijenjanja paradigmi i otvaranja novih perspektiva.
My side, I tend to start with an interview, which I put them into this structure of how we know a person, and from there, try to take these characteristics of the plants into that interview, and then start with the rest of the detail and trying to do the design. So a boot-alone here is taken my process, more like the interview one. So basically, a boot-alone has this nice tradition of having a boot-alone variation, a boot-alone mosaic virus. And what happens is, if you can see on the schematic, the leaves will have this yellow pattern on the leaves. And it makes the abutilon a lot more popular among the human beings because now humans are their main distributor, so they are spread all over the world because of human. And while these leaves are green, as you can see, they don't have the mosaic virus, so they are less preferred by the human being. But the mosaic virus doesn't really cause any harm to them, so they are actually really perhaps on the process of integrating with this really nice symbiosis with them. So what happens is, because they don't pass on to the offspring, because the biomass of the seeds is too small, so the virus only stays with the mother and not the child. So we have these cups filled with the white flies, which transmits the virus from the mother to the child. So we say it's like the process of pass on the good gene, that's a part of the virus.
Suodnos čovjeka i biljke istražuje se i kroz komunikaciju, pri čemu se ponovno traži iskustvo, a ne reprezentacija. Posjetitelju se ne omogućuje promatranje, već mu se daje prilika da odnos sam doživi i da postane dio njega.
MyConnect is an interspecies connector. It connects human nervous system and fungal mycelium. The connection happens via heartbeat sensor, and the signal of a person's heartbeat sensor goes through the mycelium. Mycelium changes the signal, and this signal then comes back to the human body via vibration, sound, and light. So because of that, the nervous system is overwhelmed and the heartbeat changes. So again, this changed signal goes into the loop. The research behind it began like 5 years ago when we discovered that mycelium works as a variable resistor and that we can use it in real time, which was really important for us so that the visitor can really experience the connection in real time, not as some representation of it, but just as a real sensation.
Radovi predstavljeni kroz performanse također naglašavaju značenje održivosti i ekologije u budućnosti, a pojedini su direktno inspirirani aktualnim događanjima poput vremenskih nepogoda.
So the piece that I have in the Cyber Arts show is called Tipping Point. And at the very beginning of making this work, it was a point in the UK where there was quite a lot of flooding, and I was really aware of the world's water resources. So I wanted to make a piece that dealt with water levels and kind of suggest that we need to balance how we use the world's water resources. So my initial idea was to create a piece where water levels change a sound, to create a sound piece. But also I wanted to hint at this balance idea, and the title I think also suggests this. So within the piece I have glass vessels with water in, and they work in pairs. So each pair is on a tipping arm, and they're connected at the bottom. So as the arm tips one way, the water flows into the lower glass vessel, and so that one fills up, and the other one empties. And then as it gets to the point where it's going to completely empty and the other one's going to overflow, then it switches back the other way. And when it gets to the point in the middle and it's balanced, it creates the same sound. So it's quite a subtle connection to nature, but I wanted to make a piece that has an aesthetic quality that is also visual as well as sonic, and has got this suggestion through the title that it's to do with the balance of how we use water. The difference between when it's a sonic sculpture, it's running as an installation, I give it a set of parameters. So it has a kind of open score, and it works its way through these different parameters in a different order every time, so it's always changing, but it does its own thing. But when I do a live performance with it, I control all of these aspects live. And what's interesting about that is I can control the arm tipping, and I can control the gain of every microphone, so I can effectively tune them and also control how many are on at the same time, so make different densities and chords and clusters of sound. And I also put that through some pitch shifting and reverb units to sort of also accentuate and shape the sound.
Program performansa, kroz direktan kontakt s publikom, temporalnost izvedenih radova i naglašenu vizualnu atraktivnost, ove godine ponovno u festival unio posebno uzbuđenje i pop kulturni element.
Fluffy Rovers is for 4 spinning tops made out of acrylic. And inside of them you have gyroscopes, which are sensors that detect the speed of rotation. And after that, this is sent by Wi-Fi to my computer. And depending on the speed of rotation, I trigger some musical processes from my computer. I do have a canvas, like I know where I'm going with all of my samples, and I kind of have a form laid out, but I still have a lot of flexibility during the performance. And I need this flexibility because the tops themselves are kind of unpredictable. I never know where they're going to bump or like if they're going to bump into each other, stop or doing whatever. So I need to react to those behaviors live, and so it's really nice to have that possibility. But also, I used to be a jazz musician, and it's very nice on stage to be able to interact with maybe the mood of the public, but also like just be there live and like take risks. In my work, I'm always trying to make like electronic music, which is kind of an abstract process to make it more visual and tangible. So I'm always looking for like objects or systems that could allow me to make this possible. And when I thought about the spinning top, it was kind of a click, you know? And so I knew that I wanted them to be big because in a large venue, it's very difficult to see if you only have small tops. And after that, when I saw that they were very similar to turntables, like the hip-hop connotations just came in right away and it kind of made this very coherent project.
I dok se medijima većinom tek usputno provlači vijest o ukidanju društvenih i humanističkih znanosti na japanskim sveučilištima u korist onih utilitarnijih, osnovno pitanje koje se kroz ovo izdanje Ars Electronica festivala postavlja je kako u svijetu antropocentričnosti i apsolutnog utilitarizma stvarati umjetnost koja može utjecati, ali ne pretendira biti isključivo korisna.
There was definitely a topic that emerged. It seems like climate change is very much on everybody's mind. And it came in different forms and shapes, but it's very much about the environment and in the larger sense to actually participate in trying to help. So it was less about creating art pieces that would wow you and be somehow a spectacular piece, and more about what can we do to create and invent new ways with an aesthetic and philosophical angle to raise consciousness around climate change.
It is really overwhelming, and we have a huge attention, especially the first 2 days, Thursday and Fridays, there were kindergarten coming. It was really nice to have, like 20 little kids here going and then having all these international artists, guests and scientists coming from all over the world. So it was symbolically, it was a very heartwarming image almost about how we can maybe master the future by really collaborating and working together. I think the big attention that we get this year has of course to do with last year, because usually the number of people you see at the festival is the response to last year. This is more important, I think. And last year we did a festival where we moved everything into the city, into shopping malls, into restaurants, into the street, into school buildings. And this created a huge attention among the local audience. And when they heard this year, a topic that is not too abstract for them, an interesting location, many of them decided to come again. And this is what you see right now, a really kind of happy community exploring all these great projects that we have.
To je bilo sve iz Linca.
To je bilo sve s Ars Elektronike.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Doviđenja.